Rejection. It's one of the few experiences that can make even the most confident person question their worth. But here's the dark truth. Men and women don't process rejection the same way. For men, rejection feels like a bruise. For women, it feels like an identity crisis. Why? Because the female brain was never designed to handle it. From birth, the female mind is wired for selection and acceptance, to be chosen, validated, and protected. For thousands of years, a woman's survival depended on her ability to attract the best possible mate and secure his investment. If she was rejected, that didn't just mean emotional pain, it meant potential death, no protection, no resources, no social status. Rejection wasn't an insult, it was extinction. And even though the world has changed, with iPhones, independence, and Instagram filters, the wiring hasn't. The female brain still equates rejection with failure on a primal level. So when a woman gets rejected today, whether it's a man who ghosts her, ignores her, or simply doesn't chase, her brain doesn't see it as a normal event. It sees it as a threat. Her nervous system floods with cortisol, anxiety spikes, and a storm brews inside her head. Because deep down, her biology is whispering, if he doesn't want me, something must be wrong with me. That's the real reason female rejection hits harder. Not because women are weak, but because their psychology is built on being chosen. Validation is the fuel that keeps her emotional world stable. From compliments to attention, to likes and DMs, every drop of validation confirms her worth in the social hierarchy. But the moment that validation is taken away, her brain scrambles to restore balance. She might rationalize it. He's intimidated. He's not ready for someone like me. Or she might retaliate, seeking attention elsewhere, flirting more, posting selfies to reassert value. It's not ego, it's instinct. Her mind is fighting for equilibrium, for proof that she's still desirable, still relevant, still enough. Meanwhile, men process rejection through logic. They think, it didn't work out. Move on. But women process it through identity. It's not just that he said no, it's that the universe just challenged her value. This is why rejection drives such extreme reactions. Why a woman can go from confidence to collapse, from grace to rage, from affection to revenge. Because rejection doesn't just sting, it rewires how she sees herself. And here's the part most men don't understand. Rejection isn't rare for women. It's just usually reversed. She's used to rejecting, not being rejected. So when it finally happens, it shakes her entire psychological foundation. In this video, we'll break down exactly why the female brain can't handle rejection, the evolutionary wiring that fuels it, and how understanding this dynamic gives you the power to stay calm, grounded, and in control. Because once you understand what's really happening inside her head, you'll never see rejection or validation the same way again. To understand why the female brain struggles with rejection, you have to go back, not decades, but thousands of years. Long before dating apps and filtered selfies, when survival wasn't about status, but about protection, provision, and belonging. In that ancient world, rejection wasn't emotional, it was existential. For women, being accepted by a strong, capable man wasn't just romantic security, it was life insurance. Without the right partner, a woman faced the dangers of nature, hunger, and isolation. And nature wired her brain accordingly. You see, the female brain evolved with one primary mission: to secure and maintain social and emotional bonds. Because connection meant safety, it meant survival for her and her offspring. So when rejection happens, when a bond breaks, when she's ignored or replaced, her brain doesn't see it as a minor event. It interprets it as a direct threat to survival itself. That's why rejection hits her system like a storm. Her amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, flares up. Cortisol floods her body. Stress hormones spike. and she goes into what's called attachment panic. It's not logical, it's primal. Men evolved for competition, to fight, to lose, to try again. A man could be rejected by one mate and move on to another. For him, rejection was common, even expected. But women evolved for selection, to choose carefully, because choosing wrong could mean disaster. And when you evolve to select, you're not built to be rejected. That's the biological imbalance no one talks about. Men develop resilience through repeated rejection. Women develop selectivity through avoiding it. It's why rejection destabilizes her more deeply. It short-circuits the very system her brain is built on. Even today, that same wiring plays out in subtle ways. When a woman is rejected by a man, by a friend group, by a social circle, her mind spirals through an ancient equation. If I'm not chosen, I'm not safe. It's not about logic, it's about security. Because rejection signals loss of protection, loss of validation, loss of belonging, the three pillars of female psychological stability. And so, what looks like overreaction, crying, anger, silent treatment, emotional volatility, isn't irrationality. It's ancient programming surfacing in a modern world. That's also why women will often preempt rejection before it happens. If she senses you're pulling away, she'll withdraw first. If she fears being replaced, she might flirt elsewhere to reassert her value. It's not confidence, it's defense. Her brain is protecting her from reliving the primal terror of being left behind. Every modern relationship, every argument, every breakup still echoes this ancient truth. For a woman, rejection isn't just losing affection, it's losing position. And the female brain will do anything to avoid that. This isn't manipulation, it's survival. And understanding this biological foundation isn't about blaming women. It's about seeing messeness, born yena, baifem. The programming that shapes them, because once you understand the blueprint, you begin to see the pattern behind almost every emotional reaction, every defensive move, every moment of detachment. If biology builds the foundation, emotion writes the code. Because while a woman's body evolved to seek security, her emotional world evolved to seek validation. From the time she's a little girl, the female brain is rewarded for being chosen. Compliments, attention, approval. All of it reinforces a simple but powerful psychological loop. If I am wanted, I am worthy. This emotional programming isn't vanity, it's survival conditioning disguised as self-esteem. In ancient tribes, a woman's social value determined her safety and stability. The more she was desired, protected, and included, the greater her chances of survival. That instinct still exists today. Only now, it's fueled by likes, messages, and constant micro bursts of attention. Every "you're beautiful," every double tap, every lingering glance from a man, it's a hit of dopamine. A tiny confirmation that says, I still matter. So what happens when that flow of validation is suddenly cut off? When rejection interrupts the pattern, the female brain panics. Because for her, rejection isn't just about a man saying no. It's about losing access to the emotional drug she's been conditioned to depend on. And here's where it gets dark. When that emotional supply is threatened, she'll do almost anything to restore it. She might withdraw, pretending not to care. She might test you, posting subtle bait online to provoke your reaction. She might even chase attention elsewhere, all while convincing herself she's moving on. But beneath it all, what she's really trying to do is rebalance her emotional chemistry. You see, men and women process emotional pain differently. When a man feels rejection, his brain releases less dopamine. He feels it as emptiness, but he eventually compartmentalizes and redirects that energy. A woman's brain, however, links emotion directly to identity. Rejection doesn't just feel bad, it feels existentially wrong. It's not, he doesn't want me. It's, something's broken in me. That's why even confident women, when faced with rejection, can spiral into doubt, insecurity, or anger. Her ego isn't built for emotional invisibility. It's built for acknowledgement, good or bad. Attention keeps her centered. And modern society only amplifies this programming. Social media has created a validation economy, where her sense of worth is constantly measured by external feedback. The female brain now lives in a perpetual loop of seek, receive, repeat. So when rejection interrupts that loop, when a man withdraws, ignores, or rejects her, it doesn't just bruise her emotions, it destabilizes her reality. This is why she'll rewrite stories after rejection. He was insecure. He couldn't handle me. He was intimidated by my standards. It's not arrogance. It's self-preservation. Her mind must protect her self-concept from the idea that she wasn't chosen. Because to her, that's not just emotional loss. That's psychological collapse. The female brain isn't evil. It's just emotional architecture built for survival. But that architecture, in a world overflowing with attention and choice, has become her greatest vulnerability. Every emotion you feel has a chemical fingerprint. And when it comes to rejection, the female brain experiences a crash so deep that it feels less like disappointment and more like withdrawal. You see, attraction and validation don't just live in the mind, they live in neurochemistry. When a woman receives attention, praise, or affection, her brain releases dopamine, the pleasure chemical. It lights up the same reward centers that drugs, money, and achievement do. That's why compliments feel intoxicating. Why romantic attention can feel addictive. Each message, each glance, each like reinforces her emotional equilibrium. But rejection, that's the crash after the high. When a man ignores her, dismisses her, or pulls away, the dopamine stops flowing, and her brain immediately enters scarcity mode. The same parts of the brain that respond to physical addiction begin to panic. The emotional warmth she once felt becomes replaced by anxiety, rumination, and overthinking. And because the female brain is wired to seek emotional control through connection, rejection feels like losing oxygen. She'll replay moments in her head, searching for clues. She'll question herself, the man, and reality all at once. It's not about the man anymore, it's about the chemical imbalance her body is trying to correct. Here's the dark truth. Women don't chase closure, they chase equilibrium. When the dopamine disappears, they'll do anything to get that emotional hit back, whether it's texting the man who left, posting online for validation, or seeking comfort from another source. It's not love, it's neurochemical survival. And because this pattern repeats, her brain becomes conditioned, not to connection, but to the highs and lows of emotional volatility. In psychological terms, it's called intermittent reinforcement. The same dynamic that makes gambling addictive. The uncertainty, the unpredictability, the emotional roller coaster, all of it floods her with dopamine spikes, keeping her hooked. That's why rejection, followed by attention, and can be more powerful than attention alone. It creates obsession. But the crash that follows rejection isn't just chemical, it's identity-based. When dopamine falls, self-worth falls with it. The woman who once felt confident and desired suddenly feels invisible. And invisibility is the female brain's greatest fear. That's why even after rejection, she'll oscillate between confidence and collapse. One day acting unbothered, the next day seeking validation again. It's not inconsistency. It's withdrawal. And here's where it gets psychological. Because the female brain is so reward-driven, it will often reframe rejection not as a failure, but as a challenge. She'll start thinking, he doesn't see my value, I'll make him see it. It's not romance. It's a subconscious attempt to reclaim dopamine, to turn pain back into pleasure. That's why women often circle back after rejection, not out of affection, but to fix the imbalance their brain can't tolerate. Rejection to a woman isn't the end of attraction. It's the beginning of obsession. Rejection has always been painful, but in the modern world, it's become public. Once upon a time, rejection happened quietly. A man didn't call back, a letter went unanswered, and life moved on. But today, rejection plays out on glowing screens, algorithms, and social networks that never sleep. And for the female brain, wired to seek validation, this new digital landscape is both a paradise and a prison. Because now, validation is endless, and so is rejection. Every seen message without a reply, every post that doesn't get as many likes as before, every moment she compares her reflection to the filtered highlight reel of other women online. All of it sends signals to the same emotional center of her brain that once processed life or death social belonging. Technology didn't rewire female psychology, it just amplified it. Where attention was once scarce, now it's infinite. And when something infinite is taken away, the loss feels infinite too. That's why modern rejection cuts differently. When a woman is ghosted, ignored, or replaced today, it's not just one man walking away. It feels like the entire world stopped noticing her, because her digital reflection, the curated image she shows the world, loses validation too. That's the dark irony of the modern era. Women are drowning in attention but starving for meaning, and that constant exposure to micro-validation, likes, comments, DMs, creates emotional inflation. When attention becomes normal, anything less than admiration feels like rejection. Her brain adjusts its baseline. What once felt fulfilling now feels empty. So when a man withdraws or doesn't chase, it doesn't just bruise her ego, it shatters her rhythm. The dopamine she's used to, the chemical reward from attention, suddenly disappears, and she interprets that chemical drop as emotional failure. It's not vanity, it's conditioning. The same technology that promises empowerment is training her brain for dependence. Dependence on attention, feedback, and constant validation. This is why social media is the perfect emotional storm. It creates a cycle of display and reaction, the endless need to prove worth, to stay seen, to feel desired. And every time that cycle breaks, when she's ignored, unfollowed, or outshined, her brain triggers the same rejection circuits that evolved to warn of isolation. Rejection today doesn't come from one man. It comes from the invisible audience. And that's why it hurts so much. Because for the female brain, visibility is survival. The modern world has turned emotional safety into a social scoreboard. And rejection, even in small doses, feels like falling off the map. So when you pull back your energy, when you stop chasing, when you refuse to feed the validation loop, you're not just saying no. You're triggering a system that's been running for millions of years. And that's when her emotions start to spiral. Not because she lost you, but because she lost control of the narrative her brain depends on to feel secure. Here's the truth that few men ever realize. Rejection is the forge where male strength is built. And the very thing that destabilizes women is what sharpens men. While the female brain evolved to seek acceptance, the male brain evolved to endure rejection. For millions of years, men competed. For status, for territory, for mates. Most failed. Only a few succeeded. And that cycle hardened the male psyche to handle loss, humiliation, and the grind of persistence. That's why rejection doesn't have to destroy you. It's training. Every no you hear is evolutionary conditioning, sculpting you into someone immune to approval. But here's where most men go wrong. They take rejection personally, as proof of inadequacy, instead of proof of effort. A woman's sense of worth is external. It's tied to how others respond to her. A man's worth is internal. It's defined by how he responds to adversity. That's your edge. That's the male advantage. When you understand that rejection isn't failure, but feedback, everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You start commanding respect. Because power isn't in being accepted. It's in not needing to be. While women spend emotional energy maintaining social acceptance, you can channel yours into progress, growth, strength, mastery. The more you build, the more rejection loses its power. Because men with purpose don't seek approval. Approval seeks them. Here's the dark irony. Women are drawn to the very men who aren't dependent on their validation. The men who can walk away calmly after rejection. The men who don't flinch when ignored. Because that calm detachment signals strength, the kind her biology recognizes as dominance, stability, and safety. The more you chase acceptance, the weaker you look. The more you withdraw your need for it, the more magnetic you become. That's why rejection is not your enemy, it's your refiner. It burns away weakness, entitlement, and emotional dependency. It forces you to build internal value, not borrowed validation. The male advantage lies in this. You can take the same pain that breaks others and use it as fuel. Rejection trains your discipline. It toughens your mindset. It silences your ego and teaches control. A woman might collapse under rejection because it challenges her identity. A man thrives under it because it reveals his identity. This is why every great man, every leader, every warrior, every builder has faced rejection countless times. But they didn't run from it. They studied it. They understood that rejection isn't the world closing its doors. It's the world asking, how bad do you want to keep walking? And that's the secret power. When rejection no longer defines you, you become unstoppable. Because no validation can control a man who doesn't need it.